Welcome to Head On here on Shaw TV, examining the issues that really matter on mid-Vancouver Island. I'm your host, Hilary Eastmure. A lot of attention has been paid lately to the welfare of dogs. Nanaimo recently changed its bylaws so that an owner who leaves their dog in a hot car can face a $500 fine. And it seems like people are always on the lookout for dogs in distress. But what about cats? Stray cats are a common sight in many neighborhoods, and they're multiplying and causing major issues for organizations like the SPCA and CatNap. I'm joined today by Leon Davis. You are the Executive Director of the Nanaimo and District SPCA. And Sabrina Hornfeldt, you are with CatNap, which stands for Cats Needing Aid and Protection. Thank you so much for being here today. Would you say that there is a stray cat epidemic in Nanaimo?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Sabrina, you are basically on the front lines of rescuing cats in distress in Nanaimo. Tell me a little bit about the work that CatNap does.
Well, CatNap is 100% volunteer run by unpaid members, or unpaid volunteers, I should say. And basically we are citizens of the community trying to deal with, I can only say deal, I can't say manage, but trying to deal with a very big problem. Citizens turn to us, send us emails asking for help. They see cats or kittens in distress or bad condition, and they're not too sure what to do, so they usually call us and ask for help.
They reach out to you, and you're all volunteers. Mm-hmm. And CatNap's been around since 1998.
That's right.
Tell me how many cats you guys dealt with last year.
Last year we were at 330.
Wow, and you said that was a 30% increase from the year before, so it is getting worse. Leon, you're seeing this every day at the Nanaimo SPCA.
Even we actually rely on CatNap's help. We could not handle the problem that's in Nanaimo without the support of a feral cat organization like this. Feral cats do not do well in a shelter, so other communities that don't have support from an agency like CatNap often have to resort to euthanasia, and that's something that we have never want to have to do. So having CatNap here hugely helps our efforts in the community as well.
And so between the two organizations, how many cats is the SPCA managing?
We see between 700 to 900 cats come into care every year. About 350 of those are stray, apparently ownerless. And of those 350, we maybe can return 11% of those to their owners because they tend not to have identification like dogs do.
Yeah, I know we've talked before about the discrepancy between the treatment of dogs and cats. And I don't know if it's the way society just looks at cats. It's like they're more independent, so they're okay doing their own thing in the wild or whatever. But it's an issue. They're treated very differently.
It's a cultural thing. We are kind of, it's entrenched in our understanding of animals that a dog is a man's best friend. You hear that dogs have owners, cats have servants, that cats are more aloof, and it's just not true. I mean, cats sometimes, when they're ready for affection, can come up to you, but I have 3 cats at home, and I can tell you they are absolute affection junkies and not aloof at all. Yeah. So it is time that we look at why we are valuing dogs over cats. Is it because there's so many and people see them all over the place all the time, so they think this is just how it is, and it's been accepted?
Yeah, so it's just sort of entrenched in the culture, and so when you see a stray cat, not everyone is going to call CatNap or the SPCA, you just brush it off. But really, cats are living in horrific conditions in Nanaimo. Sabrina, you sent me some photos of cats that you guys have been called about, so I just wanted to show a couple of those and talk about what you're seeing. So, I mean, we've got a cat in a garbage can. That's just heartbreaking to me. Another cat infected with cancer. Can you tell me a little bit about this cat with the kittens?
This was a mother-friendly cat that somebody said was in their backyard, and she had given birth to all her kittens, and it's believed she got lost or was abandoned. And we were called by the pound in Nanaimo about these guys. Somebody had abandoned them on a road. And these are 3 kittens that were born in South Nanaimo to a friendly abandoned mother. Another kitten that we were called about near death door. It was given 24 hours to live.
Rough shape, yeah.
Yeah, and thankfully it pulled through.
Wow.
Here's an adult that was in somebody's house. It was hanging out on somebody's property. They called us for help. They didn't know what to do and couldn't get their hands on them.
Yeah, so you're seeing cats in all different conditions, really rough shape. It's not a happy life for a feral cat. They don't, they seem to be thriving out there, but they're up against predators, up against disease, infighting, and food shortages. It's not an easy life.
Yeah, well, I think what gets a little bit miscommunicated is where people say feral cats, and there's a big difference between feral and stray or homeless.
Okay.
Feral cats aren't used to people. They were born outdoors, so they haven't had the socialization with people. Or it's a cat that has been away from people for such a long time that it's reverted to being afraid. With strays are domestic cats that was owned by somebody at some point and has been discarded, left, abandoned, become lost and homeless because there is no way to get them back home and nobody knows what to do. So the majority of the cats that we are dealing with in Nanaimo are domestic strays. That's what people are calling us about.
Okay, because the feral cats probably wouldn't even come close to people to have an interaction.
They can, people can see the feral cats and they do call us, but just the majority of calls coming in are cats that somebody owned at one point and are in these horrible conditions that you saw in the pictures.
And is that sort of similar for the SPCA as well?
Definitely the majority of cats. I mean, CatNap does such a great job of kind of going out to the feral colonies and stuff and trying to trap cats that won't approach people. So the majority of cats that the SPCA sees are owner surrenders or stray cats that somebody's kind of picked up and brought into us.
Okay. And Sabrina, you said with your first year with CatNap, you were actually responsible for going out and trapping cats that people had called you about, and on your own you trapped like 200 cats.
Yeah. I originally wanted to start with CatNap and do fundraising, and it's all volunteer driven, and they needed somebody to physically go out and assist citizens of the community to help get their hands on these kitty cats that might be scared. So I went out and did assist the community members in trying to help these kitty cats myself.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, most people might be ignoring the issue, but for people who are on the front lines and who really care about cats, it's causing a heck of a lot of work for you.
Yeah, well, that's not to be forgotten. We have so many wonderful volunteers that are all working very, very hard equally to make CatNap what it is. But at the same time, we're not an animal control agency. This is not what we are here to specifically do. We're just trying to deal with this, but we are by no way trying to manage this. And it's the responsibility really has to be looked back at the owner and not at the citizen. It's a community problem needing a community solution.
Okay, and I think, we have the issue of people who have an indoor cat that's also an outdoor cat. So they let the cat wander, and that causes issues. If the cat's not spayed or neutered, then it could be contributing to the growing outdoor cat population.
And that's really key. I mean, what we are all doing is reactive, and anybody will tell you that, for any situation, being reactive doesn't get to the root cause and stopping it, and that's what we need to focus on. What are the root causes of this cat population, and what can we do about that?
Okay, let's talk about the scale of the issue. We have a graph here, the cat pyramid, we're calling it, that kind of indicates the impact that one unspayed or unneutered cat can have. So you can see, in 1 year, a female cat and a male cat can be responsible for 12 kittens. By the next year, that's grown to 47 cats. 9 years later, there could be 11 million more cats. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's their kittens, one mating pair, and there's the next year, their kittens having kittens, and etc. So if none of them were fixed, that's what would happen. It's something to really take seriously right now.
Yeah, and I was reading that, a kitten born in the wild, a feral cat, most don't live past the age of 2, and then If they manage to live past 2, they usually don't live past 5 just because of predators and disease and food shortages, things like that.
There are exceptions, but the general rule we find is that an outdoor cat or cat has access to the outside. And I'm not suggesting right now that we don't let any, it's a very hot button topic, but the fact is that cats that are having outdoor access have about 1/3 the lifespan of indoor cats.
Wow, okay.
And a cat that was owned by somebody that might have been dumped or abandoned, people automatically assume that they'll be fine, they'll eat birds, or they'll, I guess, drink puddle water. But in general, they've got about 2 months that they'll survive without any human coming in and trying to help them and assist them, because drinking puddle water will lead to ingesting parasites, which can lead to diarrhea and death. And the same things with birds and mice. That's not what they're used to or accustomed to feeding themselves with. So it is. Yeah. It's really a death sentence.
Yeah.
Sabrina actually has the most amazing thing that we call a catio, and we're seeing these getting more popular. She has this incredible backyard enclosure attached to the house with trees and climbing frames, and like it's a grassy area. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I've seen that. So it's an enclosed patio where your indoor cat can go outside, get some outdoor time, but isn't going to be killing any birds. Cat's actually the #1 killer of birds in Canada, which is crazy. They can kill millions of birds in a year, and whether your indoor cat, once it goes outside, you might not see its hunter instincts in the house, but outdoors, left to its own devices,
it's in the billions across North America.
Wow.
Yeah, the estimates.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, threats to other wildlife and just dangerous for cats themselves when they're out there on their own. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk a little bit about the solutions for the stray cat epidemic here in Nanaimo and BC. Welcome back to Head On here on Shaw TV. Today we're talking about how we can do better for cats and the stray cat issue that we're experiencing here in Nanaimo. I'm joined today by Leon Davis here with the SPCA, Sabrina Hornfeldt with CatNap. So we talked a little bit about the issues with stray cats. Now let's talk about some solutions. So for example, with the SPCA, you have a whole 5-year plan that's completely based around dealing with the issue of cats in BC.
That's right. Dog welfare is a lot easier. Finding owners of dogs that are stray is a lot easier, but we're finding, in BC, the dogs and cats that come into the SPCA, we're able to find owners for stray dogs in 75% of the cases.
Okay.
That's only true of 11% of cats, and it really comes down to a lack of identification.
Okay. So you're working on ways to bring identification to cats, make it easier to keep track of them and match them with their owners. And I think a lot of people get worried because they're like, does this mean cat licensing? Do I have to put a collar on my cat? And that freaks a lot of people out. But it's as simple as a microchip or a tattoo, right? It
really is. And there's several municipalities in BC that are already requiring registration or licensing. And it doesn't have to be a huge licensing fee. The point of licensing isn't that it's a cash grab, which is what people go to first. The point is that we have to readily identify cats that we can pick up, and a license is great. And it doesn't have to be a collar. As you say, a license can be virtual and attached to a microchip or a tattoo. It means when animal control get a cat, like a dog, it's 5 minutes. There's a call to the owner and they're alerted. Yeah, and that would make your job a lot easier with CatNap.
Oh yeah. Way more easier. Like the majority of the cats that we get in, 95% of them have no form of identification, so it's very difficult for us to try to find owners, although we try very hard to try to find them, put ads in newspapers, and go on the SPCA Lost and Found website.
Yeah.
And 95% have no form of identification, or not spayed or neutered.
So whilst we're kind of petitioning municipalities to start thinking about mandatory ID at least, and SpayNeuter bylaws, the BC SPCA wanted to kind of take that proactive step forward. So 3 months ago, we launched Canada's first provincial pet registry. BC Pet Registry is a website that you can go to as an owner and register your cat or your dog or even your rabbit with a microchip that's already existing or a tattoo. We're partnering with vet clinics across BC and animal control clinics and giving them a portal access to this registry. So when an animal comes in, if they're registered with BC Pet Registry under the SPCA, they can immediately find 24 hours a day that person's details. So every animal now that leaves the BC SPCA is microchipped and on Pet Registry, and it's in the thousands and thousands already.
Wow, okay. And like you said, you have to take that proactive step because municipalities are sort of dragging their feet, some are anyway, in bringing in those animal control bylaws that would, make life better for cats and make it more on par with what dogs are privy to.
That's right. In many cases, Nanaimo has been very open. The council have been looking at the problem and asking what the solutions are, and we're working with them and staff to bring forward some solutions for the city.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because it's probably going to come back to council hopefully in August. They're going to have another look at amending the animal control bylaw around cats. And we're not looking at licensing anymore, right?
That's right. What we decided is that at this point, it is controversial. We take a little bit of a baby step, which, from having no cat bylaws to anything is actually a giant leap, in my opinion. So we thought, coupled with the BC Pet Registry, which is voluntary and being so successful, that we would look at the potential of having something like mandatory identification on every cat, which is a tag or a microchip or a tattoo, and that people, if you own a cat, the cat must be spayed or neutered.
Okay, and part of that would be, maybe it's not every cat that needs to be spayed or neutered, but the ones that are allowed outdoors?
That's something that they could consider.
Okay.
I think you might find in the report that it may be a requirement that every cat is spayed or neutered. In a recent study of stray cats, 40% of stray cats were actually recognized as by their owners as indoor only, but had gotten out during a move, a break-in. Someone's just left the door open. There's so many different ways, and they're not neutered, and they're going out, and it doesn't take very long.
Right. Okay. So it might not be your choice to let your cat get out, but it does, and then it needs to be spayed or neutered in that case.
Right, but we want that to be something that's not going to be a burden on owners. So we have the LowIncome SpayNeuter Fund, which is partially supported by the city and by a donor. Started in 2003, and we've actually spayed or neutered 6,000 cats owned by low-income owners in Nanaimo. So we want to be able to say, we're here to help. So if you do have to get your cat and you can't afford it, then let's see what we can work out together.
Is that an issue that you hear from people when they call CatNap, the spay or neuter issue?
Do you mean people calling for help, or are they looking for the...
Or looking for resources? Like, I imagine you would probably get calls from people wondering what their options are.
Oh, yeah. And usually when we do get calls if somebody's wondering about getting their cat fixed, we do let them know about the SPCA. There's also been times that we've actually had volunteers help people get to the SPCA to get their SNP certificate. So we work very closely with the SPCA to help as much as we can.
And my vision for kind of enforcing this bylaw, because we don't want to burden people, is that there won't be people in vans driving around catching cats. It would be a complaint-based system. But if somebody did pick up a cat and bring it to the pound, like they sometimes often do to the SPCA, and it was neutered, yes, you would be potentially having to pay a fine, whatever that fine would be. But I ask that fine be waivable. So if you need help to get your cat fixed, you can come to the SPCA, help you through the SNP program, and then once that cat's snipped, that fine could actually be canceled.
Okay. Yeah, so there are options for people. They shouldn't be afraid of bringing in a bylaw regarding spaying or neutering, because it really is. It's meant to protect their cat and make life better for every cat in Nanaimo.
The intent of the bylaw that I envision is to elevate cats to a level where we respect them and want to protect them, and to help people to access spay-neuter for their cats. It's going to reduce the population of cats in Nanaimo. It's going to enable us to get them reunited with their owners more quickly. It's nothing about creating fines or creating money, and I've been very clear with the city with that, and the city has been very clear with me that this isn't a cash generating idea for them at all. Right,
okay. And how does that sound to you, Sabrina?
Yeah, no, I think the idea is absolutely fabulous. I know some people are a little bit wary of cat bylaws, but if we can have a bylaw to make people responsible to pick up after their dogs when they do their doggy business, and there's a fine attached to that, I would think surely we could do something to help with the welfare and protection of cats, and so they don't end up abandoned and having litters all over the streets.
Okay, and Nanaimo is not really going out on a limb looking at this. This is something that other municipalities have adopted as well.
Absolutely. There's, I think, at least 13 municipalities in BC that have spay-neuter requirements. It's funny, Nanaimo does have one cat bylaw, which says that you can't have a cat outdoors that is diseased because you can spread disease.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is that the #1 spread of disease in cats isn't that one cat that might be out as disease. It's cats out creating new litters of semi-feral or free-living cats, and they're getting sick untreated and they're spreading disease. So actually having that bylaw doesn't help. What helps is the spay-neuter bylaw to stop the spread of disease.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, cats can have diseases that you might not be able to like physically look at the cat and tell that it has a disease.
No, absolutely not. And indeed some not many, but some diseases that cats can carry are zoonotic, which means that they can actually pass to people. Ringworm is one of those. They can harbor some worms that can infect people. But again, the lower the cat population that aren't owned, the lower the chances of these diseases spreading.
And what's the financial toll right now in terms of dealing with cats? Like CatNap, like you said, it's not government supported at all. It's completely nonprofit, and you're obviously having to put a lot of resources and time into this.
Yes, well, we've been lucky enough to receive an SPCA grant for feral cats, which has helped us very much. But at the same time, we have to get a lot of money to be able to do what we do, which all the money goes directly back into our rescue cats because nobody's paid. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of community support and donations to be able to do that.
Do you have any idea on an annual basis, like the financial resources it takes?
Oh, I would say probably around $65,000 a year.
Wow.
We have to raise and put together.
Yeah, and there is quite a bit of community support for CatNap. Like, you know, you've been around since '98, so people are really aware of the work that you do.
In '98, they started, it was just a group of volunteers that were caring and compassionate, and were trying to help some people out that didn't have anywhere to turn at the time in regards to feral cats. And it's just grown exponentially. So has the problem at the same time with the size of the cities growth, so is the problem growth as well. Yeah. So now we're at the point where 2 years ago we kind of came out and went on media, went on Facebook, opened up a little bit more to the public to find out who we are. But at the same time, we're trying to keep a basis where there's only so many volunteers, and we're trying to do our best, but it just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, you're not really looking to take on more work.
No.
Like ideally, it would be nice if this problem would sort of,
Yeah, most of us have full-time jobs, and this is an additional full-time job. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and how can people support CatNap?
They can go to our website, catnapsociety.com, and there is a tab that says how you can help. You can click on the tab. It goes to a donation page, which they can donate online, or they can send a check, and if on our website in that tab of how you can help, it's got the address on there.
Cool. Okay, and on an annual basis, what is it taking the SPCA to cope with the issue right now?
Our budget is about $700,000 to operate in Nanaimo overall, including everything we do, all of our programs, human education programs, looking after animals. We spend around $5,000 to $6,000 a month on health care of animals. Vets in Nanaimo are all highly generous with their discounts, but it's still expensive. Yeah. I would say probably 70% of our medical costs every month are cats. And I would say probably 75% of those cat costs are dentals. We see a lot of cats that have been living without an owner having horrendous dental conditions and needing extractions and abscesses and things like that. It's also a common condition we see actually of owned cats coming in. It's something people don't realize. I should be brushing my cat. I never did before I started this job.
Are you serious, brushing your cat's teeth?
Absolutely. I had somebody bring in a cat of 10 years old and had awful dental, full mouth extractions. We mentioned about brushing teeth in the future. Brushing teeth? And I said, could you imagine if you didn't brush your teeth for 10 years, what state your teeth would be in? So yeah, we absolutely recommend brushing your cats and your dog's teeth.
Wow.
Rabbits.
And people thought giving their cat a bath was tough.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's a huge financial toll just coping with the cat problem. So if you were able to direct some of that money into, spaying and neutering and the identification, then we would see this issue kind of clearing itself up.
Well, you know, if we could reduce the number of cats needing help in society or in Nanaimo, that money we could use to redirect into proactive preventative work. Some of our humane education pieces, some of our advocacy pieces would be hugely helpful to be able to put more money. We don't have the money to invest as much as we'd want to in those areas, but.
Okay, so Sabrina, what would be your message to cat owners in Nanaimo?
I think it's important for everybody to realize that we have a responsibility to be responsible cat owners, and it really shouldn't be an option. It should be a requirement to own a cat for that cat's welfare, for the community, for the citizens. It's a community problem needing community solutions. So hopefully everybody thinks before they adopt a kitty cat if it's something that they can put the time and investment into.
In terms of getting it spayed and neutered and making sure it either has a tattoo or a microchip, and you know, if it gets out, it can be traced back and you can get your pal back.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Leon, what would your message be?
A couple. It's a community solution. It's going to take work from cat owners, non-cat owners. Seeing a cat running across the street stray does not automatically mean that cat's okay. We can't do it without the public's support. I think there needs to be a level of legislation and education and enforcement all together. I would say an argument I often hear, which frustrates me, is the cats are very capable of taking care of themselves. They are quite resourceful, but they can't deworm themselves. They can't apply monthly flea treatment. They can't go and see a dentist when their tooth hurts or even tell someone it hurts. So no, they can't look after themselves long term. They can survive okay, but they can't look after themselves.
Yeah, they're scrappy, but they're not going to be thriving out there. Yeah. Okay. And hopefully we'll get, you know, that support from City Council when that bylaw comes back, and take a closer look at what we can do for cats.
Yeah, and we're here to help. So the SNP fund is there. It's utilized a lot. It's 500 cats a year that we spay and neuter for low-income owners, and we're willing to do more.
Okay, so how do people get access to the SNP fund?
Yeah, SNP program, SpayNeuter initiative program. Pop into the shelter 12 to 5, Tuesday to Saturday, piece of photo ID and some sort of evidence of low income, and we will make an appointment for you to vet. And we try and be flexible with that. So, you know, low income could be, you know, you're on EI, you're on welfare, you're on disability, a student, a senior, but also we recognize that some people who are not necessarily the low income government threshold are still struggling. I have a toddler and they're very expensive and I struggle. So we do look at people's situations if they're just hitting a hard patch and need some help.
Okay, very cool. Well, thank you so much to both of you for joining me today to talk about this, and thank you for the work that you do, you know, looking after animals in our community. That means a lot.
Thanks for putting a focus on it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, this has been another edition of Head On here on Shaw TV. Thank you to all the volunteers who get the show on the air every week, and thank you for watching.